We are so thrilled to have you all here. But we also have some great information to share with you, so we thought we'd get started. My name is Becky Safrick. I'm the president of the Greeley Creative District Board. And in the room, we have several of our other board members. And could the other board members raise their hand so that folks can see them? These are the folks that sit on a 17-member board, and our work is to help you be incredibly successful as creatives, to help our community have that reputation that we know it is destined to have as a place where creativity thrives, where this is a place where you can grow and become your best self. And we really want to find ways to help all of you be able to enjoy not only our creative community, but to also be successful at what you do. So we have put on a series of programs that we call Cacophony of Creatives, and people ask, well, where did you come up with that name? Well, we found it kind of fun to think about multiples. And so if you think about a gaggle of geese or a flock of ducks or whatever, we thought, what would you call a bunch of creatives? Because they come from so many different angles. And so in the back, we put together a multiples chart that's like a cuddle of cartoonists and a jam of jazz artists. And so you might find yourself on there for fun. But we thought when you put it all together, it's that wonderful cacophony of noise that happens when orchestras are first starting up. And there's all this stuff going on. It's high energy. So you are all our cacophony of creatives, and we are loving that you're here. So thank you very much for being here today. We've got a really great program, but I'd like to tell you a little bit about other things that are going on. First of all, we'd like to thank our sponsors. The High Country Beverage has done all the printing for us. We really are grateful for them. We're also a part of the state of Colorado Creative Industries, Colorado Creative Industries, and the city of Greeley provides a small stipend to us. But otherwise, we have special events and raise funds and do what we can to kind of keep this energy going. We also have on the desks in front of you, we are in the process right now of exploring whether or not we could create a physical space for creatives to have maker spaces and places to perform and places to rehearse and things like that. We would love it if you would help us carve this path that we're on right now to make sure that we are paying attention to the things that you as creative community really wants the most in this community. A place where you can be, where you can extend yourself, whether it's with performances or dance or music or rehearsal space or a place to create or just to hook up with other artists and creatives. So on the tables there is a feedback form. If before you leave tonight you could grab that QR code and just it's a 5-minute survey, but it's really important to us to get really good feedback. And so we'd love to hear from you as to what you think we could do to help make this a meaningful community for you to thrive as well. And of course, we'd love to know what you think about today's presentation. No pressure on our panel here, but we'd love feedback on whether these topics are helpful to you or if you've got some ideas or some things that you'd like us to do as well. And on the way out, there's a flyer for the presentations that we'll be doing in September. We'll do another one of these cacophonies, and at that one we'll be talking about how do you find your community, how do you find the people that you can surround yourself with or hook up with to be really successful. And several of the speakers for that group are here today as well. So in the back we have a sharing table. If you have business cards you want to drop off or if you want to pick up anything at all, we've got some little notebooks that you're welcome to. Also, if you are associated with a business or a location that is in the Creative District, we'd like you to grab a door sticker or something you can put in your window to say, hey, I'm in the Creative District, whether you're a school district person or a Envision, or if you're one of the art groups that we have around here, we'd love for people to know that you're in a really special place in this area that we call the Creative District. So we'd love to have you help yourself to those as well. Our program today is all about selling yourself. We find that sometimes you have the most amazing talent or product or service, but it's not always easy to get out there. We also find that some creatives, believe it or not, are kind of introverts. Do you relate to that? Really hard to be out there loud and proud all the time, and some aren't. So we think that it's helpful to find that way that our very skilled panel can talk to you about how they found their path, what they recommend, how you can be really successful in getting yourself out there. And we would love to, of course, the reason we asked you all to sign in, and if you didn't sign in on the sheet when you first came in, please do, because that's how we can stay in touch with you and help connect you with these kinds of opportunities. So with that, I think I will turn it over to Dan England, who will be moderating this panel.
You can applaud, it's okay. Okay, all right, yeah. I always hate these things. I'd rather have the little clip, because I feel like Michael Jackson or somebody back there. But, so, and by the way, that survey, that doesn't mean come up. to us and tell us we sucked. Just please tell the survey, okay? We're very sensitive people up here. So I'm Dan England. You guys might remember me from the Greeley Tribune. I wrote for them for 20 years. For the last 5 or 6 years, I think it's even been 7 now. I've been a freelance writer. I write for NoCo Style, Colorado Sun, which is an online publication started by the Denver Post. I sometimes write for UC Health. And I am also a ultramarathon coach, so I'm sure all of you have wondered, how do I run that first 50-miler? If you're ever curious about it, or even just a marathon, I do have a business card back there with all of yours. So I'm here today because it was my job to just ask questions of smart people, smarter than me, and so that's what I'm going to do today. We are going to leave time for questions at the end, and I hope you have a lot of questions. I do see some people here who are really good at marketing, so even if you have a tip or anything to share with the audience, I would really encourage that too, because that's really the whole point of this. So I'm going to hand it off to Chalice Springfield. She's our first panelist, and then they are going to robustly introduce themselves, because they also should get a chance to market themselves a little bit, I think. So, all right, Chalice, take it away.
Well, good evening. My name is Chalice Springfield, and I own a business called Unstoppable Curiosity. It's a coaching, training, and facilitation company. For 30 years, my background, I have lived in Greeley for a long time, but for about 30 years, I was in the real estate space. So I have an entrepreneurial and business background, ran and managed, was the CEO of Sears Real Estate here for quite a long time, about 15 years. But for 20 years, I've been doing this coaching and training as a side hustle. And so if you have a side hustle that you're like, I'm never gonna get it off the ground, you can get it off the ground. About 2 years ago, I launched this business full-time, and it's going well. And so that's a little bit about my background.
My name is Bethany Coons. I would definitely fall into that introvert category of, I told Dan, I was like, normally when I have to talk in front of people, I sweat, so I purposely wore a tank top because it makes me nervous. But yeah, and I am definitely in that category of, my whole life I've been nervous about selling art. I would much rather give away my art than have a conversation with somebody about buying it. So I relate to that, and hopefully I can speak to some of those fears. In terms of who I am as an artist, I paint murals. This mural on the outside of this building is mine. I have a bunch of murals around town. I've also illustrated multiple children's books. I do like art, play, installations. There's one at the Centennial Library. If you've been to the Denver Children's Museum, I just finished a permanent exhibit there called Bloom. What else do I do? I don't know. I also garden. I have 4 kids. I homeschool. If you were to like follow my day, you would just feel like she's the most like jump from one thing to the next person ever, because I'll be weeding one moment, and then I'll go bake some bread, and then I'll go like paint 2 little lines on a painting, and then I'll go do homeschool with my kids. So I really just like to make things, and it doesn't really matter to me what category, but that's what, I don't know, brings me the most joy and gives me my purpose.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? My name's Tim Coons. I'm married to Bethany Coons, and we make a lovely team of chaos together over the years. I've slowly become more control. She's more chaos. And my background as a creative is that for about 20 years, from early 20s to 40 years old, I would consider myself a professional musician and doing work where I was doing singer-songwriter work and releasing albums, and then also was a creative director for churches and different faith communities for many, many years. And in the midst of that, I would also create things like podcasts. I would I made a podcast that was a working out meets playing D&D, and that was my COVID. Thank you. That was my COVID project, and it didn't launch. But yeah, If you want to check it out, it's called Workout Adventure. It's fabulous. You roll dice, you do push-ups. It's a good time. And then in the last 5 years, I transitioned out of that work into nonprofit world and was working at Weld Community Foundation to be their communications person. I found that I did really love the creative side of being able to make connections with people. And so that led into that type of work. And then just within January, became president CEO of the Weld Community Foundation here in our town. If you would like to talk about grants and things that could support you, I'd love to chat with you about that when it comes to artists. Anything else? How many of you enjoy the part of sharing when it comes to your work? Okay, a few folks, yes. Enjoy that, and it's okay to enjoy that. And how many of you feel fairly nervous or feels like it's kind of salesman-ish when you have to share about your own work? Yeah, about the same amount of folks, like kind of half. And so we would love to chat about that today and address that and give some tips of how can you remain yourself and keep your own voice within how you share the things that are vital to you and important to you as a creator.
Yeah, marketing's really hard, isn't it? I think it's by far the hardest part of my job. I know how to write, I know how to do articles, I even know how to coach people, but getting my name out there and actually being recognized by people and wanting to sell my services is really tough. And I'm seeing a lot of, well, not a lot, but I'm seeing some people here who aren't really artists per se. They're just people who want to know how to market themselves. So we're not alone. And so why don't you three talk about what's worked for you? So maybe talk about what you think is the best thing that's worked for you specifically. And then if you want to maybe talk about one or two other things, we could even trade off, do that. But I would say the best thing that's worked for you right now, because if you guys came here and if they can just offer you at least one tip and that's it, great. Because that one tip has helped me before always get people. So, Chalice, why don't you start?
So I have this little note card with all these tiny little things, and I'm like, it's so dark in here. I need Bettany, can I look at your notes? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense. It's good. I kind of want her notebook, which is really great. No, really. If I had to boil it down to what's been successful for me, I think it's the relationship marketing versus transactional. And so, I see a lot of friends in the audience, and so it's sometimes who you know and the shoulders that you rub up against and the referrals that can be made, or the network, the community that we have that can help us. And so, has anybody ever heard of the Dunbar number? Yeah, good. So Dunbar number is kind of a study that says all of us know about 150 people in our circle. Now, that might be large for all the introverts in the room are like, I know 10. You probably know more than 10. But that if we really are present to who's in our circle, our Dunbar number, 150 people, that if we leverage that, not leverage in a transactional way, but in a relationship way, and we focused on creating relationships with those 150 people, we would then have access to referrals from their 150 people. And it's sort of that exponential kind of concept. And so in order to be really focused on our Dunbar number, we have to keep track of those people. And then we have to interact with them. We have to learn their names. Hi, Val. Hi, Matt, right? We have to know and be able to see and connect with them. And we sometimes have to have little tools to do that with, right? So networking can be a good way to create relationship marketing pieces. And so I brought a little thing that I sometimes do, which are just little giveaways. So I'm just gonna pass this little picnic basket around. And I brought this, I did this for some networking events that I've gone to, and it says, I'm nuts about coaching, training, speaking, and facilitating. But it's really inexpensive. And so the reason I brought this is because sometimes we think we have to do a billboard or we have to spend money, in a publication, and it costs us $600 and we don't have the money to do that. But we could, just put this on and hope to get somebody's attention, or it might just be a reminder that if I gave this to Bethany at a networking event, she might remember, oh, if I have somebody in my Dunbar number, if somebody in my referral base needs coaching, training, speaking, facilitating, what was that gal's name with the rhino and the kitten? That's my logo. Oh yeah, Chalice, and then could get in touch with me. So I thought I would just pass some of these around, but my tip would be relationship marketing and figuring out how you can if either grow your number or connect more closely with the people who know, like, and trust you already. I'll pass the basket around if you can keep it going. There's also some pens and some really fun stickers, because I'm also known for stickers.
I was trying to convince him to go first. Yeah, mine will be the more kind of the artist perspective side of this. I am someone who has a really high gag reflex for like being advertised to. Like, I hate being advertised to in terms of I hated it when Instagram added ads, and I did everything I could to block all of them out. And so I think it's really important to be as just your authentic self, first of all, when you're sharing vulnerabilities, sharing the mess behind what you're making too, not just the pretty pictures. But I think sometimes what's tricky, especially when you're starting out, is how to find, it's helpful once you have a big following base of people seeing your stuff, of, whatever it is you're working on, whether it's writing or art or music or, whatever creative thing that you do. Maybe you're a baker, I don't know. But how to sort of grow that base. And one of the things that's been helpful for me is starting out saying yes to all the things, whatever comes your way. And later on, you don't say yes to all the things because you become overwhelmed with projects. But initially, if you say yes to all the things, each of those leads to other connections, leads to other relationships. And within that, I should say also doing really good work. Only do work that you feel great about. And if it means you have to stay an extra 2 days on a project or put an extra 50 hours in, get it to where it is something that you're happy representing you. And your work will speak for itself, and then you'll get more connections. Every connection I've ever, I would say 90% of any connection I've ever gotten has been because of a past job, because of a past relationship. Cold calls, cold applications rarely work for me, and maybe that's just, I'm not a good enough artist, I don't know. But the truth is that they always come from other connections.
A piggyback on that, I just had that memory of there's a movie. It's called Chef, I think, and they have this food truck, and they're making Cuban sandwiches for everybody. Is it called Chef? And this moment happened, and Bethany and I looked at each other. They're like, "That's it." We were like, "That's it." They're offering these sandwiches for free for these construction guys that come in who just they want to feed them a lunch, and he's training his son. And the son has the Cuban sandwiches, and he takes them and flips them, and the dad, the chef, is like, whoa, those aren't ready yet. They aren't perfectly toasted. And the son says, who cares? We're giving it to him for free. And everyone in the kitchen in that little tiny food truck is like, whoa, and they all stop, and they're like, it's not about that. It is about this perfection of the love of what we're able to give to somebody else. And watching you for these years of starting off things, and an example would be, she went and did this little internship with the Greeley Children's Museum, right? Denver Children's Museum. And the Denver Children's Museum, and it was, it didn't pay a whole lot, but it was a neat little internship. And she spent hours and hours there and did this really cool installation. And I think that was a large reason of why they stayed in contact with her for a larger project when it came up. So great thoughts. I love the relational marketing piece. A couple of things that I've found to be, that have been really important for me, and I'll offer a few quick ones. One practical one is have an email list. Develop your email list. Because you might have something great going with TikTok or Instagram or even Facebook, but those patterns change and people leave, and they're so fast. I've had email lists that I've kept for 15 years, and I'm still in contact with certain people that are still listening to music that I'll produce. And so like that seems to be, I mean, you can't say evergreen, but it seems to have a more lasting thing is to have that email list and care for it and watch over it and tag the people how you know them. Another thing that was really important to me, this is just kind of a bigger picture with marketing. We love our creative projects. We love getting excited about certain things. Every creative project that you do has 3 phases to it, 3 stages. You have the creation and the dreaming and the writing. You have the production, the actual making of the thing, the production. And then you have the sharing. And each of them take the same amount of time if you're going to do it right. And what I mean by that is that, like, for myself, I would sit in rooms with my friends and write music. And oh, it was so much fun. And I would make little notes of it and just be like, yes, like I love this song. Oh, I think this song also belongs in the album. I'd sing songs in my phone. And so that's the creation point of it. But then there's the actual production where you get into the studio and you have to record things and have to like really make it. A lot of us, we feel like that's it. Like, okay, I've made the thing. Like we dreamed it, we created it, and now we've produced it. If you don't invite people to it, what a loss for us all. Like if you don't invite people to your show, if you've got a theater company, you don't invite people to it, that's not a third of the work. What a loss to us all for something that you've poured into. Realizing that was really helpful for me in how I budgeted my time and how I thought about things. That it's about a third of it should be, how do I want to share this? My last thing that I would say that was really important to me was this phrase, they are the hero, you are the guide. And here's what I mean by that. We all feel like we are heroes in our own story. And that's this natural human thing. We all feel like we're heroes in our own story. And so I would post something, and I would put, just made this album with my friends, so proud of it, just really hope you'll take a listen to it, poured a lot into it, how cool, thanks. It would get like 2 likes, 0 clicks on it. And I heard, like, I read a book called Story Brand. And it talked about you can tell stories with how you're posting. You can tell stories with how you're sharing things. And it said an important thing to realize is that they're the hero. You're the guide. You're not the hero of the story. And so it changed how I actually started sharing things with people. And I would say, have you had struggles, or do you know someone who's struggled with anxiety? This happened within my family. And as we worked through it, I wrote this song about it. This is how I processed it. And I gave someone a window who saw the post or saw like the email. And the difference in how that relational marketing happened was unbelievable. Because now they had this window where they could bring themselves and become a part of this larger story. And that was extremely important. And so that was a reframing for me that I needed. That they're the hero, you can be this guide. In the sense of like Luke Skywalker meets Obi-Wan Kenobi, Moana meets her crazy grandmother. You know, like there are these guides that can bring us further. When you're thinking through how you're sharing your work, how can you be a guide and how can you elevate someone to be a hero?
I think Tim should have moderated this, don't you guys think that? Yeah. I have a real simple follow-up question to that. And I wanted to hop on one point you made about an email list. I put out a newsletter. Does anybody else here put out a newsletter? It's, you've probably heard the phrase marketing never stops. It's not something where you can just put your name out there once or post on Facebook once. And that's what's so exhausting about it, but it's also real life. That's what makes it work so well, is that you keep getting out there, and a newsletter is a really good way to do that. And so when you are at these networking things and you're handing out your business card, point out the fact that you do put out a newsletter with free advice every month. Please sign up for my newsletter. It's free. And sometimes you can either offer them something like a screen, this is stupid, but like a screen saver, or a bumper sticker or something for signing up for it. So I think the email list is a really good tip. There are a lot of good tips there, but I think that's a really good one. So my follow-up question is, how do you expand your network? Where do you go to meet all these people?
Do you want to start, Bethany? I feel like I always have to start. Okay, yeah, I know. Okay, Bethany. Okay. Well, I think you have to look for, in terms of expanding your network, you have to look for places where people might be interested in in whatever you're promoting. So my friend Katie's here. Katie's Bakes. You should go to see her at the farmers market. And she offers samples at the farmers market, and that is a place where people could try her cinnamon rolls and her blueberry lemon rolls and all of the things that she offers, which are to die for. Katie, raise your hand. Yes, this is good. So you have to hang out. If she just hangs out in a place that nobody is able to come and buy her rolls, then it's not going to be effective, right? Then you can't really expand. And I know that seems like a no-brainer, but I often find that people go to events and they're like, well, I didn't really get to meet anybody, or it didn't work for me. And it's like, well, you went to the event where your message just wasn't really, people didn't really necessarily want, need, or you didn't, maybe to Tim's point, tell your story well enough that then it was a compelling conversation to meet new people. There's lots of places to meet. I mean, Meetup is a place you could look. There's chambers of commerce. There are the creative district. I mean, this is a great networking opportunity. And when you go to a networking event, to Dan's point, I wouldn't try to meet everybody in the room. When I go to a networking event, I might try to meet 5 people. And so really connect with them on a deeper, authentic level, like what Bethany is saying, that's the relationship piece. But that will help you expand your network, and then we exchange cards, and then maybe have a meeting offline, like we're gonna go for coffee, or I'm gonna go to Val's concert and then get to know her better, whatever. But I think part of it is putting yourself in the right place and being curious about it. Ask people, hey Bailey, where have you gone that's been successful? Especially other people that might have your creative line, right? Your artists or your creative line, they can help you. So ask for help. I think that's the other thing.
I think this one's a tricky one for me because the idea of, the original question was expanding your circle, right? Like expanding. Yeah, because my worst nightmare is actually showing up to a networking event. Like maybe improv comedy. Like that's maybe the only thing I can think of that might be worse or more painful. I mean, this is great. I love you guys. I just like if I have to have an awkward conversation with each, I don't know. So I was trying to think about this in terms of for my personality type, for what does that look like? And I think the first piece is I do think action is important. I think showing up to things, I think making things, inviting people over even if it feels uncomfortable, making the ask, sharing the thing that you don't want to share. I think just doing the thing that you're scared of, I think is a important step. And I love Chalice's word curiosity too. I think and this is something that's served me really well in my life is diving in when I have no idea what I'm doing and doing it anyway, and being willing to say yes, and then knowing that and maybe this is because I was unschooled and I have really hippie parents. I don't know. I'm not learning things is something that I'm willing to do. But I think putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. I cannot tell you how many things I have signed up for and said yes for that I had no idea how to make or do, and I figured it out along the way. And so, oh my gosh. So Tim is a songwriter. And at one point early on in our relationship, we went to a songwriting convention. It was actually supposed to be for creatives, but it turned out that everyone there was a songwriter except for me. I was the only visual artist. It was supposed to be like this artist retreat thing, but it was only songwriters. And they did this activity where, and it was a church-related thing. So it was like, we're gonna read a line from a psalm. And they said, okay, we're just gonna jump right into this, all of you all. I'm gonna give you a line, and you're gonna write a song, and you're gonna sing it in front of everyone. And you have about 20 seconds to do it. Like, it was like, and he said the key here is that velocity is the enemy of fear. And in other words, like, just dive in, don't think about it too hard, otherwise you'll chicken out. And he said, and there's like 40 people in the room. There was 170 people in the room. And he looks right at me and he says, Bettany, you go first. Oh, I blacked out the rest of it. I don't know what happened. Where was I before that? You distracted me. But velocity is the enemy of fear, of that, like doing the thing that scares you and taking the chance even though you're worried about it. And the other piece to that in terms of broadening your connections, broadening your, like, I don't even like to think of it, I don't know, marketing isn't, I don't like that because it feels very businessy to me, and I want it to feel real, and I want to, like, I don't want to have a relationship with someone just because I want something from them or I want them to buy my artwork. Like, that feels really inauthentic. And I would much rather get to know them and know their kids and, like, be able to, like, you know, someday paint a story about their house because they moved and they love this house that they lived in and they want something to, you know, like, hold that as they move on to this new space. So to me, it's much more about story and connection. And my friend Wes, who painted these incredible installations around us, one of the things that he talks about a lot, which I come back to, is this idea of ever widening circles. Your circle starts tiny, and then your goal in life and all the things is that we would slowly expand and we would have these ever widening circles. And when you start out, like, your circle might be tiny, and I mean, I know all of my first paintings and drawings I ever sold were to my mother. And then, you know, and then maybe I, like, sold a couple to my aunt, and then, like, I found, you know, some random lady at a, you know, I don't know, farmer's market, bought one tiny print, and I felt like it was like a whole new world of, but then you get to a point where you're turning people down and you're saying, I don't have time, I have to charge more, I can't do this because, and that's just on the, like, personal work side, but your connections grow, and hopefully your wisdom grows, and your understanding, and your, like, so I think each piece, it's like you never jump from the tiny circle to the giant lake, like, right? It's like it's tiny steps each at a time. Did you have a question?
I just wanted to say, as an observer of Bettany's work, what's coming to mind to me is that you might not be going to the event, but there's a different way of showing up that you have in your promotion. And I think about the screensaver you put out every month. Like, you've been really, really consistent with that. And so it's a reason, like, you're giving value to people and you're giving them a reason to stay in touch with you. And it's something I remember I just, like, had it on my computer at work, and my coworker's like, that's so cool, what is that? And now she goes to your blog every month. And so there's something about showing up consistently, whether that's face to face or in your newsletter or on your social media, that you do really well. Thank you.
I actually feel like I generally do a bad job with this because I have 4 kids. I feel like my life is really full, and so I wish I was better at sharing my process, sharing photos. I've gone through phases. Funnily, the desktop backgrounds, I feel like I would get hate mail if I quit, so I have to, like, I can't stop doing it. No, it's good. I always do them very last minute too. It's like the day of. Oh, I love that picture of gift, though, of, like, if you're going to do a newsletter, and it comes back to what Tim was saying about being the hero of your own story versus being a guide, being, like, having it not be about you. And so I think, I don't know, I know the newsletters that I read of other people, the blogs that I read, like, it's, in some ways, like, they've given me a gift, and I think that it's important that there's a relationship piece, that there's a back and forth, that it's not just a, like, let me tell you about all the amazing things that I am doing. I don't know.
Thank you for offering all those things. That's awesome. In some ways, I do feel that things within the arts travel lightning fast when it comes to culture, and so things that I have to offer within this might be a touch antiquated. But how Betty and I would do things in the last 15 years, there was a piece of that where it was a gift. Like having that desktop background would be this place where you could give something to someone and then have conversation with them and continue to be in touch with them through an email or through a Facebook post or through an Instagram post. And I would do the same thing with shows. I would go and play like a smaller show, and these are small events where it was like a house concert. I would go to house concerts and I would say, I've met you. You like the music that I do. I'm coming through town. Let's do a small concert. Invite 30 of your closest friends, 40 of your closest friends, and I'll play a little intimate concert in the living room. And after that, people want to stay in touch with you. It's this really neat experience. But I would get emails then, and I would say, let me send you some free songs from the night. And this was before Spotify was something that everyone was jumping onto for free. And so that idea of gift is really beautiful. I had one other piece of this idea of here's the other thing that I would do, and I think maybe Chalice gets this. I don't know if I'm kind of strange in doing this, but like when I would think through all of my connections, I would think through, I played in this city and I met these people and they're amazing, and I'm a part of this community here. And I know these people here because of this. And I joined this group, and so they're my core group too. I actually would write all that out. And I would say, here are my major connections with each of those networks of people. In the book Tipping Point, they're called mavens. And these are people who kind of keep the centerpiece of either culture or connection within communities. And so when I had new things that were going out, I would write the person who was a friend of mine in that city, and I'd say, hey, I'm getting ready to do an album. If you would post about it when I post something, would you say a little something? And they'd be like, absolutely. And so as a result, I would reach somewhere in Arkansas. I would reach places in Denver. I would reach places in New York. And so it was really I actually would think through, who are my people in a very natural way, and who are the people that I've made connections with over the years, and that kept developing and expanding. Do you do that? Yeah, I do that.
One thing I wanted to say really quick too, when I was in Greeley and working for the newspaper for 20 years, I felt like the most invaluable thing was just to get involved in your community. And if that meant volunteering for an organization, or I've just being in the Doug Bell's running group alone has given me 100 friends, so if you can find one thing or one way to get involved in your community, volunteering, something fun. It doesn't have to be volunteering or something you don't want to do. It can be something really fun or an interest. There are other people, and that's a really easy and effective way to expand your network. So we've talked about things that have worked. So I wondered if you guys have one or two experiences where you've tried this marketing thing and it just hasn't worked at all. And then maybe there's even a tried and true method or something and everybody says, you need to do this, and it just really never works.
I would say, for me, I have not tried this, but I am resisting it with all my might, is funnels, which is like you sign up for a freebie and then all of a sudden you get 8,000 emails in your box and then you unsubscribe. And for me, it doesn't work for me. It might work in the world, so, but I, like Bettany, feel like it's just noise and makes me resist the conversation. I'm sure there's a way to do it effectively, but that's something I've resisted, is where when I sign up for something, then all of a sudden it's no longer permission marketing. It's just like an onslaught of a tsunami that makes me overwhelmed, and all I wanted was that one free thing, right? I think the other thing for me that I've tried that has not worked is paid social media. I think I do have a social media account, and Try to be somewhat regular on it. It's a little bit of a struggle bus for me about that. But paying for social media, like Facebook ads or those kinds of things, has not really brought me, it might show the likes, or the reach or whatever, but I haven't, I do a pretty good job of asking where my business is coming from or talking about that, and it hasn't really ever led to any specific, like a new person or somebody that wasn't already in my circle. I think it can be good top of the mind awareness, but I don't know that you have to pay for that. I think, to Bettany's point, if you can be really authentic with your social, you can probably have the reach that you would like. So I would say for me, funnels, blech, and number 2, paid social.
So this is a funny one because this is where I would like to live. But if you make something really lovely and you just let it sit in your basement, that doesn't work. Like, no one is ever going to see it. So the thing that doesn't work is not sharing it at all, which I am very often inclined to do. And I'm married to Tim Coons, and so he's always encouraging me to no, you have to actually share this. You can't not share it. So not sharing doesn't work. I would say, it's not quite marketing, but I said this already, but I wrote down in my notes cold applications, but that's not, I mean ones that I have no connection with. Anything if I apply to a project, even if I put a lot of time up front into it, I've had very little luck with applying for or reaching out for things that I have no connection with. And maybe they just have a much bigger bank of artists that they're pulling from, but that doesn't seem to work. I agree with the Facebook ads ones. We haven't done that very often, but we've done it a few times for different events or things, and I just feel like it's just throwing money away. Really, I don't know that we ever have or do pay for things. I would not pay for any of that. I feel like you can do so much more just with all of the free venues that you can use. And that was so different. Yeah, I think that's it.
You both hit on the things that I was thinking through. We've never ponied up a lot of money for something, and then I would say that the most recent album that I put out was 2.5 years ago, and at that point, I had a new full-time job doing something differently. And it was still in a creative vein, but I didn't have the time to follow up with that third of your work with the project needs to be sharing it. And I shared it a tiny bit, and it was and that's all that's going to have to be. Yeah.
Sorry. I just had one other little thought. I also think something that's good to keep in mind that we haven't really talked about is just your audience of who you're sharing it to. We've been listening to a podcast about J.K. Rowling recently that's really fascinating, but she talks about publishing Harry Potter, and I don't remember if it was 12 publishers rejected Harry Potter first or something like that. Maybe more, yeah. But I do think it's really also important to make sure you're sharing to the right people and to the right groups, if you have control over that. But I think sometimes you can make something that you think is really incredible and present it to the wrong audience, and it might be incredible, but if your audience isn't the right audience, then they're not going to get it, they're not going to appreciate it, and it'll be really discouraging for you because it's not the right crowd.
Okay, just one other question, but before I ask it, because it's a decent question, how many people have questions? Is there just one or two? And I'm sure more will come up. Okay, cool. Well, then I'm going to ask this question, and then we can get to you guys. But so how do you stay true to yourself and also market yourself?
I put on my notes, get over yourself. That a lot of that just, I think, how to stay true to yourself is about staying in alignment with your values. And so Bethany already said it earlier, don't do things that feel icky or sell your soul because you're like, I just need the money. So knowing your values and staying true to those and staying clear on that, I think that's a good, kind of a good guardrail. But then we just get in our own heads, right? We just get in our own heads about like, it's not perfect. This isn't good enough. Oh, and it's like, just launch it. Right? I mean, just go for it, because done is better than perfect. And if it's in your basement or if it's in your head or hiding in your notebook, it's not gonna, it's not helping the world. And so I think, a lot of this has to do with our own backpacks. That's like I call it, we carry our own backpacks around and we have a bunch of junk in our backpacks. So sometimes we have to clean out our backpacks and just realize, am I getting in my own way? Sometimes we are, and sometimes, sometimes we may not be. There may be real obstacles that are holding us back, but then try to do something that chips away at those obstacles. So get out of your own way.
One of my favorite quotes is, that which is most personal is most universal. And so as we're writing, as we're creating, that which is most personal is often most universal. And so when you're sharing things, to tell people, this is what I'm thinking here. This is why I'm creating this. This is, some people might be like, but I don't get that. Right? I don't understand it. But a lot of people, and you'll be surprised, a lot of folks will be like, oh, like I didn't realize that's what she was creating, like communicating with that painting. That means something to me, and I totally see what she's saying. And so, like, as I've shared things over the years, whether it be through an email or through something, I just take time to say, like, in what ways am I being true in what I'm talking about here, and if I'm true to that, then it's going to resonate with someone, and strike a chord somewhere, and you have to trust that.
Yeah, I think on mine it's similar to Tim's in terms of that being true to yourself, but for me they're not too separate. Like I wrote in my notes, little voice, like, and it's like listening to that little voice about, and for me it's both sides. It's the finished product that I'm making, the art, like if my little voice is like, this isn't good, like this isn't, like it's not speaking, it's not what I want, then I have to, like, even though it's annoying and it means more work, I have to go back and redo it, and I have to keep going because it's not there yet. And I think the same is true for marketing stuff, of like, if I'm reading something that I want to share, or sometimes, often because we share things together, Tim will write something and I'll be like, nope, you can't share that. Like, it doesn't feel like me, so I'm not okay with that being shared. Like, it has to resonate with who I feel like is who I am and what represents my artwork. So I think staying true to that, listening to that little voice that's very, like, quiet and annoying sometimes, nagging, is a piece of it. And then the other piece, and I think this kind of speaks to what Chalice was saying about, like, sometimes you just have to dive in and do it. And I'll read a quote too, because I love this one. This is Annie Dillard. And it's this picture of, like, sometimes we want to say, like, we want to get a little stingy with our techniques, with our ideas, with our, like, we're like, oh, I want to save this for the right thing, or I want to, like, I don't want somebody to see the behind the process. I don't want to share how I do that because somebody might steal that idea, might steal that process. Like, that's mine. And I think just personally as an artist, like, I want to always be, like, unbelievably open about how I do things, because really, like, it's everything I've learned is because somebody has been open with me and shared their process with me. Like, I know how to paint murals because Armando answered a ton of questions for me when I was, like, early on. I'm like, how do you rent equipment? How do you do this? How do you translate your design? And so that's something that's important to me, is to, like, share those pieces. But anyway, so the Annie Dillard quote is, one of the few things I know about writing is this: spend it all, shoot it, play it, lose it all right away, every time. Do not hoard what seems good for a later place in the book or for another book. Give it all, give it now. Something more will arise for later, something better.
just as I know we're closing up, we're going to do questions too, but I've always said this when I'm able to be around other creatives, and it's important to me to try to communicate this well. If you don't share fully of like, if you can't be fully you, we can't be fully us. And so like, each of you in this room, if you were to send me an email of like a song that you're working on, or like a shot of like the painting you're working on, I'd be like, awesome. I would so welcome it. I would love to see that. If you're posting things in a social media arena, I would love to see that. And I feel like many of us feel like that, of like, I love to see what people are working on and creating and sharing. It doesn't come across to me as like over marketing or whatever. Like I will sometimes let folks know if I've seen a post, they're really working it, and if I've seen a post of theirs like 3 different places, or if I've seen their messaging 3 different times, I will let them know, I'll be like, you're doing really well. Like by the 4th one, I'll buy something from you. You know, like, but it is like, sometimes we feel like we're sharing too much. Like please share away. Like, the world is a better place when we are personally sharing that which comes from our souls.
That would have been a really good ending, but we've got 10 or 20 minutes for questions. So I will give it to the first person who asks a question, and then I think we can take 10, we could even take 20 minutes, so don't feel like, oh, I don't want to ask a question because I don't want to keep people here. That's kind of the point, so.
Hi, my name is Todd Welch, and my partner and I, we make custom costumes, like cosplay and those sorts of things. And I think one of the things that we struggle with a lot in, the topic of selling ourselves, and I know this is a very, maybe specific to what it is that each of us are doing, but how do you even begin to philosophically figure out how you charge somebody for your art? I mean, there's this practical thing. We got bills to pay and we need to charge them, but do I charge them too much? Most of the time we charge them way too little. So what drives that for you? How do you figure that out?
And I will tell our panelists too, not everybody has to answer every question. So, but that's a really good question. Who wants to go first?
You started and then I'll...
Yeah, well, jumping in, it's really difficult to price your art. It's very, very difficult, and the just that width and breadth of like, sometimes I would play a show for $50. Sometimes I get paid $2,000. Like that's giant, and so knowing where you're at with the relationship with the person, where you're at with your region. Like that's something interesting of like, if someone is showcasing paintings in this room, those are going to be priced differently than if you showcasing them in a similar room in Denver. We're radically different for art. And so knowing your region, also knowing your patrons. Like if you're going to be working with an institution of some sort, like a hospital or a church or somebody who wants, like they're going to have a better ability to pay you what you're worth. If you're working with family and friends, that's going to be tailored differently. And so there is flex for this, but it is okay. Like when the university says like, you've been killing it on stuff, here's our budget for this, like you tell them, yes, that's what I'm worth, and it's like, this is by far 4 times what I've ever earned on this, you just go with it, because of that. I would also just love to put in there that most of you are undercharging. I already know that. like most of you are most likely undercharging, and it's okay to raise to a certain level of professionalism as you grow as an artist and you get better and better. It's okay to bring those prices a little bit up as you get busier. It's okay to bring those prices up for your time and for your for how good you are at what you're doing.
Yeah, I have a little list of a couple things too. So I agree with that like sliding scale thing. I think everybody has to start off charging very little because it just, like you're at the beginning of your skills, you're at the beginning of getting started, you're trying to make connections. And there is a natural scale that happens. I think that part of it is like a feeling that you get when you sell your work and you're like, that wasn't worth it. I'd rather have the thing that I made than the $200 you gave me. I want the painting back. And I think when you have that feeling, then it's just a little like check in your head of like, oh, next time I gotta charge more. And I still have that sometimes. And then there's times when I've like, I may be overcharged. It is an ever shifting thing that you're aware of. I do think it helps when you're talking to clients. Two things, like having some sort of a scale that you put together in terms of time, material, for me it's like square footage, but truly like in some ways it's a little bit of a joke too, because it's like it helps them to know professionalism, but like I can paint a mural that is 3 feet by 3 feet and it can be insanely detailed, or I could paint a mural that's 3 feet by 3, and I'm talking small, that has like the simplest shape, and obviously the prices on those would be really different because one might take me weeks if it's like super intricate, whereas one might take, so it helps to have a scale just to communicate with people, because you're talking about humans that want practical. They want to know, like, here's how much it costs to, rewire this plug-in. And so you need some scales or markers. So like for me, like lots of times I'll say, here's my general scale for murals. It's this much per square foot, but it depends on the complexity of the design. So I think having some sort of like base set of prices is helpful for what you do. And know that that's like a flexible thing that you have to adjust all the time. And then the second thing is have an upfront conversation. My goodness, like especially if you're doing a custom thing, have an upfront conversation. Ask what someone's budget is. If they don't know, often I will pitch something at 3 different levels. I'll say, here's what I would do at this point, here's what I would do at this point, and here's what I would do at this point. Because often, like, they don't know until they see the ideas. So yeah, having a scale. I also think it really helps to look at similar stuff and see what it's being priced at. So, hop on Etsy, see what other people are selling similar things for. That's helpful. And then the last one I wrote down is just demand. There was a point a few years ago where I was having a conversation with my friend Greg, and I was like, I'm so overwhelmed with work. I don't have any time. I'm so exhausted all the time. I can't get these projects done. And he turned to me and he just said, charge more. And I was like, what? And I think there is a point where like you have to take into account just skill and where you are on your journey. And there's an awesome story. It's like a Chinese proverb about this artist. Somebody comes and commissions him. I'm not going to tell it as well as Tim will, but he like commissions him to paint a picture of a rooster, and he says, "Okay, great. Like, come back in 6 months. It's going to be $2,000, whatever it is." And the guy comes back to pick up the painting in 6 months, and the artist pulls out a pencil and draws it and hands it to him and says, "This is going to be $2,000." And the customer is just aghast, and he's like, "How? Like, that's not fair. It didn't take you 6 months. It took you 30 seconds." And then he opens the door to his studio, and there's just hundreds of drawings of chickens on the walls, and there's chickens all over the place, and it's something that he has practiced and and honed his craft to get to that point. And so that's always important to remember as well, that it's not always just about how long it took. It's the journey up and to that point as well. I hope that helps.
So, with my business background, I know like all the artists in the room are resisting talking about business, but we do want to treat our art, if we want to make money, and this is the selling conversation, like a business. And so I always think of art like, the way I run my business, like a 3-legged stool. So your CEO, your COO, so Chief Executive Officer, which is like sales and marketing and really doing the business, but then there's the operations piece, COO, and then there's CFO. So we got to measure what we're doing, right? And so if you're doing things that don't make enough money, then that you have to have a conversation with the CFO yourself, right? Like, hi, CFO, there's not making enough money. When I started this coaching and training company 2 years ago, my husband and I sat down and we did a phase 1 budget, phase 2 budget, phase 3 budget. And phase 1 looked like I lived back in college again. Like, I couldn't put stuff in the grocery cart, and I was like, we never went out to eat, and really, what do I need in order to make this happen? And I was clear, like, how many costumes do you have to make? How many clients do I have to get? How many speaking engagements? And then what was the cost for that? And then phase 2 looked like, now we get to maybe take a trip and go out to the Mad Cow and have dinner every once in a while, have a sandwich, right? And then phase 3 looks bigger, right? More travel and more freedoms and flexibility, and maybe I'm charging more, right? And because I've generated the marketing and the sales and the connections with people that's able to happen. But if you're not measuring that, and I know we resist that, right? In kind of this creative space, it's like, I just want to do my art. I would just like to show up and not have to generate business every day either. But the truth of the matter is, as a solopreneur, every time I have a speaking engagement, I'm unemployed and have to find another one the next day. Really, it's true. And so it's hard, and I think that's where we have to have this business mindset. We don't have to live in that forever, but I think we have to have a little bit of that three-legged stool so that we're mindful of, it's a great question, and it's one I struggle with just as much as these guys. Am I charging enough? Whenever I give an amount for a workshop or a training, and that person's like, oh yes, that sounds great. And I'm like, oh, I didn't charge enough, So I think we all struggle with that.
All right, who's next? Who's got a question? All right, be aggressive. We're running out of time.
Hi, my question is for when you guys began your creative careers and you were first working on building up that momentum, would you say there was any sort of sacrifice to that authenticity right from the get-go as you were trying to gauge your audience, gain some traction and get that momentum really going? Or was it just authenticity from the get-go, the audience will follow? Or would you say it was more of this in-between, kind of trying to ride that line, just as far as building those careers go and, just starting out as a young artist myself? I'm just curious how that felt, from the beginning.
Oh my gosh, it's always like there's always a push and pull in terms of when you're working for somebody else, but that you have to make allowances, you have to make adjustments. I just submitted 3 ideas to a publisher for a children's book that I'm working on, and I got their feedback back, and I was like, I don't like any of that. I don't want to do any of those things. But then you have to sit with it for a long time, and then you have to figure out a way to do it that still feels authentic to you or to work within it. And sometimes you have to say no to them because you're like, I cannot do that thing and still be authentic to myself. But I would say it's a huge part of the process. I had an awesome, so my friend Wes, again, if you've been to the link, the art installation upstairs that's called Where Water Flows Uphill, I had a fun conversation with him about, there's these beautiful circle skylights in the ceiling, and sorry if there's anybody from the library board here, just don't listen for a second, because I was like, how in the world did you convince them to put these beautiful big round skylights up in your art installation? And he said, well, actually, my original plan had total glass ceiling, but what I really wanted was the round skylights, and so they thought they were compromising, but I got the round skylights. But I think sometimes you have to realize that you cannot just do what you want to say, because it's a relationship. It's like whenever you're working with a client, it's not just about you and your artwork. It's also about telling their story. There was several things for the Children's Museum project that it felt like this is the hill I'm gonna die on. You have to do this, and they were like, nope, we're not gonna do it. And I really wanted these big dandelion puffs, and they were like, nope, we're gonna put in mushrooms. And I was like, but it feels psychedelic, I don't want mushrooms. And they were like, nope, we're gonna do mushrooms. And it has mushrooms. And but it's not just, and I actually think in the end, often I'll look back on those and I'll be like, that was silly. Why did I want to, I was wrong. And I think sometimes we can get too egotistical about like our right way is the only way. And after, I think you have to sit with it often and figure out how to, like, we're creatives. You come up with a creative compromise is what you do. You come up with a creative way around it. Don't let it shut you down. Whatever the change, the adjustment, you know, and they are in every single project. Every single one you'll come and you'll say, ooh, I have this incredible idea. It's going to be like this. And then they'll be like, yes, but could we add, you know, a flamingo playing basketball? And you're like, oh God, no. But then you figure out a way to, like, yeah, do something.
Well, I just want to encourage you to experiment. I mean, what if we just tried on that we're experimenting? And so we test this, and it works, or it doesn't work, it fails, and then you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that again, right? Instead of being so serious about every, you know, this is a good reminder for me. Don't be so serious, right? Like, just lighten up a little bit and not sell your soul. Like, you don't have to be inauthentic and go against compromise your values. But if we just experimented a little bit, I think it will help us find the boundaries.
I think a flamingo playing basketball would make a great T-shirt. Don't you guys think so? We have time for one more question. Okay, great.
All right. My question is more on the systematic side of it. So you talk about building an email list. What is the platform that you use for your email list that you have found successful? I'd love to know more about that kind of stuff.
I'm not sure where the different platforms are at now, but like I think I have 7 MailChimp email things that I've started for different projects. So MailChimp isn't a bad one. Within MailChimp, you can tag each email in such a way as to like new followers, or you're a baker. Like these people love chocolate chip cookies more than anything, and like or local Greeley, or these are Fort Collins emails, and like you can tag them all to like send out specific emails. I think an entry into MailChimp is still free if it's under like 1,200 emails, and then once you start getting more, it'll be like $26 a month or something like that. So it gets a little expensive, and so you'll want to start sending out those emails with an idea of like, if I can convert on $50 per month, this alone will pay for the email subscription. Emma is another one that I've used that works okay. I do not like Constant Contact. Levitate is a new one that interfaces with your Outlook, and it has AI capabilities, which is nice. And so it looks like it's coming from your email rather than an HTML designed email. But I like the HTML designs. I like seeing pictures. So.
You might also check your website. So I just resist paying for anything extra, because it's like I feel like you get this system and then this program and this app, and then all of a sudden you have all these little $26 a month charges that are giving you paper cuts to death. You know, and so I have a website on Wix, and I just have a plugin through that. It's probably not as, I mean, I can still measure it and do the things. It may not be as robust as MailChimp, but it works. And so check, you know, the programs that you currently already have to see, is there something that's already embedded in that you might be able to just supersize and use? That is one recommendation I would have.
You can see who's opening all the time. Yeah. Like if you start sending out, and like you'll see that you have the same 5 people that love it and open it, and like, so it's like, oh, next time I go into town, I should see if they want to partner with something, you know.
Okay, I know I said that was the last question, but I have one more question because somebody really looks like they want to ask a question. Oh, okay. All right, very cool. All right, so first of all, I want to thank Chalice and Bettany and Tim for being here. Just like I thought, they're very smart people, so I'm just glad I asked questions instead of offering advice. But I do want to say one thing before I let you all go, is that marketing is really painful, and it feels like we're bothering the people all the time, and they've already said this in a way, but let me give you a quick story. So I wrote a book, and it's about an ultra runner female who was a meth addict, and she got off the drugs and is now one of the world's most successful ultra runners. She's run over 100 milers, right? And I did not want to get the book out. I didn't want to go to the library and sell it and do all these things. And somebody came up to me who is now a friend and said, and she had tears in her eyes, and I might choke up saying this, but she said, I read your book, and because of that, I got off drugs. So art is inspirational. Art is what helps us get through life, conquer life, and maybe even make our lives better. So if I have a final thought and I leave you tonight, you're doing these people a favor when you get your work out there. You never know what it's going to do to somebody. So thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it.
That's a hard act to follow, but I would like to echo, I think, what Dan is saying is that the wealth that we have in this room, the connections you have with each other, the information you have is priceless. And that's why we like to do these networking sessions, is because the riches we have are right next door. They're the person sitting next to you. Finding those connections, finding the way to what worked for you, really the talent that we have here. These are our art Sherpas. They are the folks that are helping to guide and help us to get through this. A couple of my takeaways from this rich conversation that we were able to have is that there's more than one right answer. And this is what's so wonderful, is that there are many ways for you to take this journey and to find success. And it sounds like a little bit of stamina helps, a little bit of courage, but also the friendships and the associations that we have with each other are what we're really going to help us really make those steps forward for all of our communities. So we are so appreciative that you came. A couple of reminders. Dan really would like to know what you thought of the presentation, so there's a survey you can take on the way out. And the survey that we have at your tables, that's going to help us identify what we can be doing to help you all be successful. If we do and we're lucky enough to find ourselves in a physical space, what would you love to see in that space, so that we can make sure that we're including your thoughts and ideas, so that we can all of our boats rise with the effort that we have to do the best we can. With that, thank you so much for coming. There's still more food if you'd like to hang around. Obviously, we'd love you to be here for as long as you'd like, but we'll be wrapping stuff up about 6:30. So, and grab a flyer on the way out the door so that you can be listening to our September 19th Cacophony right here. We've got some great speakers that will be continuing this conversation as they talk about how do you find those groups of people that can help you support and grow and be successful. So with that, thanks again for coming. Appreciate it.